I'm going to call the February regular monthly meeting to order, and let us all stand for the invocation and the pledge to allegiance.
Let us pray. Our Father, this is the day that you have made, and so let us rejoice. God, just be with us as we go through this meeting this morning. And God, may we realize that we were elected by the citizens to do what is best for the citizens of Nash County. So be with each one of us, Lord, as we do our job. And God, we just give you the glory in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Face the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Fellow commissioners, you all have copies of the minutes of our regular meeting and also a recess meeting. I hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Minutes approved, unanimous. Next thing on our agenda is public comments. We had no one to sign up, so we'll move on to the next thing on the agenda is a public hearing. Conditional use permit for a solar farm on the Fraser Road. Nancy?
Good morning.
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 We have this morning a public hearing. It is a quasi-judicial public hearing. It will be to allow, to consider approving a conditional use permit for a proposed solar farm. This is on approximately 355 acres. To see that red line. It's on approximately 355 acres on the east side of Fraser Road. I'll tell you what, let's look at this one first. This will give you a broader view of the area first. The petition is submitted by Gary Dudzik, representing Carolina Solar Energy, as well as Richard Brantley on behalf of the property owner, E. Brantley LLC. The request, as I said, is for a conditional use permit to construct a solar farm on approximately 355 acres of the existing tract. Property is in the A1 Agricultural Zoning District, and as we said, it's on the east side of Fraser Road between Highway 231 and Old Nash Road. The project does not involve a lease area, which is typical of what we see, and the reason is because the intent is to actually subdivide this 355 acres out of the larger tract. And the larger tract is just a little over 600 acres. So this would create actually a new parcel, and then the solar farm would be in that entire parcel. It's located, let's see, the current use of the property, as you can see, is there's some woodland and some cropland. There is an address on the property, but that represents a former house or building that was there. It's no longer there. The property does have some wetland areas and some streams. They're subject to riparian buffers. It's not located in a flood hazard area or a protected watershed. The project will be subject to the Nash County stormwater permitting requirements regarding disturbed and impervious areas, even though the tract is separated to some degree between the Noose and the Tarpam. By far the majority of the project is in the Tarpamlico Basin. The proposed solar farm does not trigger the incompatible land use. I'll get to the site plan in just a minute. The solar farm does not trigger the incompatible land use screening requirements of the UDO because none of the immediately adjacent parcels are residentially zoned or used residentially within the requirement. The site plan does include a 100-foot buffer. Because the project is very large, we have first an overall site plan that shows both sections. And what we're seeing here, and we'll get to a smaller one, but just for the overall picture, this is Fraser Road. And this it right here. The site plan shows one lay-down yard here and another back here. And this area right here would be where the project would connect to the utilities. So that would be a utility substation type infrastructure. The utility power line easement actually splits the property and runs just about in here. Okay. So you see the panel arrays in this area in the front and then the large arrays in the back. What you see outlined kind of in the red are the wetland or the stream areas, and those reds show the buffers that might be required in those areas. We'll go now to something that's a little closer and easier to see, but that just gives you an overall picture of the large site. This is the road front portion, and you can see that there are 3 access points. One goes to the substation, one is in the kind of the middle of the project where there would be a gate, and then another where there's an access to an easement. This is part of that laydown area, and the easement kind of goes back, it follows an existing path onto the remainder of the property. Okay, so there's a large solar array. This line right here that you see is actually the Noose and Tarpam line, so you can see that there's just not very much of the active project is actually in the Noose Basin. Okay, and then this would connect here. That would be that other laydown area. And on this one, you see where they're proposing culverts or stream crossings in 3 locations. One would be here. One would be here to connect this field, and one would be here to connect with that small area.
May I make one comment to you right now, if I may?
Certainly.
I think this thing is taking too much cropland to almost cultivate out of this picture, and it's not a good idea to do all that because it don't add nothing. It takes away the farmer's what he can cultivate. I don't like all that. Then you take it out for so many years when you get it out, and then you got to get it back in there. I don't like that. I'm dead against this being done.
Okay. There are, it is the front portion up until this back portion is virtually all forested right now, but certainly the front, you can see where the colors change, and that kind of designates where the cultivated land is now, so that would be taken out.
Yep. We don't need that now. We don't need that stuff nothing taken out that takes the farm out of his rental property that he's cultivating for this county.
Commissioner Morgan, let her finish, and then we're going to ask for questions.
I just wanted to inject that in now, and then we'll get to call on. Okay.
The UDO does define a solar farm as a facility used to convert solar energy into electrical power for interconnection with the power grid, primarily for off-site energy consumption. And there are, as you know, development standards in Section 11-4.72 for the development of solar farms. I'm sorry, I've neglected to mention one thing. Let me go back to the site plan. One thing I did not mention, I had previously noted that the incompatible land use buffer, the screening, is not triggered in this case with this particular project. However, the site plan does include a 100-foot buffer of existing vegetation to remain in this northwestern corner, I guess. And it follows this line. You can see it here grayed in. That's for existing vegetation to remain. And that is adjacent to the Annie Ruth C. Murray property line. And that site plan does also have a note on it that indicates that the developer will supplement plantings in any deficient areas at some reasonable point during the construction process. And this vegetative buffer in this location was adopted as a result of, or was recommended by the planning board as a result of comments made and requests made during their planning board meeting.
What, if I may ask her a question about that, what distinguishes this this property and doesn't require a buffer?
This is in an A1 zoning district. The A1 is not considered to be a residentially zoned district. It's primarily an agricultural district. We consider the residential zoning districts to be those that start with an R.
Why wouldn't we, though, have a buffering requirement for all solar farms?
We certainly could, but it's not currently. Currently, what's in the ordinance is just it's triggered typically in populated areas by that incompatible land use buffer that we have.
So
But certainly it's a condition that could be added should the board.
an agricultural
Want to do that.
zoned area, you require no buffer whatsoever.
Not unless the houses are close to the property, that's the subject property.
We're gonna have time for questions, so, let Nancy finish presenting, and then I'll be calling for questions, comments.
Okay. Your agenda package indicates the development standards for the solar farms as they are listed in the UDO. And the proposed site is located, as we mentioned, in the A1 district where it is permitted. The maximum height, the site plan indicates that the structures will not exceed the 25-foot maximum height. Site plan does indicate the proposed facility would satisfy all the principal building setbacks. And the site plan includes security fencing in compliance with the above requirements. And it does, the submitted site plan does include schematics, or that they indicate that those are, everything that's required to be in the site plan is designated on that plan. And in this case, as we noted, we have three shots of that, I guess. One of them is split. For safety, the solar farm facilities shall not create a visual safety hazard for passing motorists. That's not anticipated to be a problem in this case. And then the abandonment clause, where solar farm facilities shall be removed at the owner's expense within 180 days of a determination by the zoning administrator that the facility is no longer in use or is no longer being maintained. And as is our custom, the landowner of record shall be responsible for that deconstruction and removal of the solar farm at such time as the facility is decommissioned or abandoned. As with all conditional use permits, in addition to the development standards, the Board of Commissioners must conclude that the proposed development will not materially endanger the public health or safety, will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting properties, will be in harmony with the area in which it's to be located, and will be in general conformity with the land development plan or other plans officially adopted by the Board of Commissioners. Because this request does not change the existing zoning classification of the subject property, the property is already zoned A1, which allows the solar farm with a conditional use permit, then there's no need to address spot zoning or recommend a zoning consistency statement. Nash County TRC, Technical Review Committee, considered this request at their meeting on December 31st, 2015, and recommended approval subject to conditions. The Planning Board then met on January the 19th and considered the same item. At that meeting, several citizens opposed the request, and one change was made, as we noted previously. And the Planning Board unanimously recommended approval on the basis of the finding that the solar farm would be a relatively low-intensity land use, should not generate additional traffic post-construction or significant noise, that should be able to exist in harmony with the surrounding land uses in the rural growth area as designated by the 2006 Nash County Land Development Plan. And in addition, noted that solar power is a green initiative that provides a green renewable energy source. I also listed a number of conditions. These are the conditions that we typically apply for solar farms or for any use, and they require obtaining necessary permits from the state and local government and compliance with the UDO, and also that the project be constructed in compliance and in accordance with the approved site plan. So unless you want me to read them, I won't read through all those. They are in your packet.
Yep.
Okay. I'll be glad to take any
Commissioners,
questions.
do you have any questions comments you'd like to make at this point? Commissioner Davis?
Just a couple of questions, Ms. Nixon, if I may. I think you indicated the planning board had 2 meetings on this?
No, planning board just had one.
Okay, you had one in December, one in January?
No, the TRC had one in December, and the
TRC,
planning
okay,
board
excuse
had
me.
one in
I
January.
misunderstood what you said.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's my problem. Tarpam Rex, you mentioned, I thought in a previous hearing, we had determined that there was no impervious surface that was created. Just give me an idea of what they have to deal with.
Typically, Typically, the impervious surface that's created is if they put in gravel driveways in various areas in the site.
Okay.
The laydown areas are not considered to be impervious because it's a temporary construction sort of arrangement. In this case, because of the size, the sheer size of the area, we haven't calculated it yet, but there's some possibility that we may hit it just because of the size of it. You can take, even if
We're
it's
only talking about the drive.
right,
apparently.
the drives and the posts that physically go in the ground. And so it, you know, it's,
So you gonna calculate the post?
it's a, we kind of take a calculation for that. But primarily, what would trigger it would be driveways if they graveled driveways.
And the part in the Neuse River Basin doesn't have that requirement? Or
Actually,
different?
what it is, the stormwater in the Neuse Basin is governed directly by the state, so you deal directly with the state on that rather than with the locality.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have one question as you're going
Yes,
along.
Mr. Morgan.
Is this good for Nash County people? Because this county belongs to Nash County people, not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And we need to, what is good for Nash County? This county belongs to the people out there, not just a group.
I think that what we have seen in other solar farms, certainly it provides alternative energy, and it provides the property owner the option to do with his property what he requests to do at that time. And you can ask the property owner if you have some questions about.
The
Why he
Utility
wants to do
Commission controls us anyway now already. I mean, we don't need any more controls out there already. Because it's not, this is Nash County people, and we don't need to have more taxes and stuff coming in, all this stuff. Nothing that would devalue their property at all. I know the planning board has passed it one time before, but I don't know where it was fully evaluated at that time or not, or now either. That's my question.
If the planning board has evaluated what?
Have they evaluated what it's doing to the Nash County people? Or your property, my property, everybody else's around it? Is you don't think it's doing nothing to defer it from what its original cost was or what it would bring? And there's a lot of farmers cultivate that land in there too, different ones, and if you take it all out and give it to the power companies, all you're doing is giving them more power.
Well, from a tax standpoint, it most likely is going to increase the tax base for that particular site.
Well, if the tax base creates more tax, but who pays the tax? Yeah, we do. County, it affects all the county people around it.
Well, the owners of the solar farm would be the ones that pay the taxes.
Well, yeah, when you put all that stuff out there on it, yeah, you're taking all that land out of cultivation too at that time. So you could take about 10 more farmers out of cultivating practices that they make a living out of.
Well, I guess you can make this statement that it's unfortunate that a lot of farmland is going to be used for this as people age and they stop farming themselves. They want to have the freedom to do most of what they would like to do with their property that may be a source of income for them in their older age. If someone is interested in buying farmland to farm, that's another story, but in most cases, we have less people farming, but farms are getting bigger, and in the hands of less people are being leased. But if you can't lease it, or if you prefer using it for something else, for housing development, or solar farm, or whatever, they would like to do that.
Well, if we're taking away from our neighbor, well, we shouldn't be doing it anyway.
Well, we try to protect the neighborhood by the conditions in which these solar farms are established.
Mr. Chairman, I think all of us probably have various ideas on this subject matter, but I really think we should conduct a public hearing prior to expressing all of our individual ideas would be fair.
Well, I called for questions from the commissioners,
Sure.
and then I'll be going into public hearing.
Well, I don't have any technical questions myself at this
Okay.
time.
Any other questions from commissioners? Nope. Well, then, I call for a motion to go into public hearing. This is a quasi hearing, which means that anyone that wishes to speak for or against will have to come up and be sworn in. Motion to go into public hearing?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Davis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wells. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed to the same sign? Ayes?
No.
And unanimous. So,
I think you had
no,
a
no,
One no.
I had one no. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing, and to speak, you must be sworn in, whether you're gonna speak for or against. So those that wish to speak, please come up and be sworn in.
You could place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, my name is Beth Trejos. I'm an attorney with Smith-Moore Leatherwood here today on behalf of Carolina Solar in regard to the conditional use permit for a solar farm off of Fraser Road. At your places, I put a packet that I would ask you to accept into evidence. You have seen similar packets from me before. It is a copy of the application, affidavits from the experts who are here today to testify before you. And included at the very rear, might be a little bit easier to see, are 11 by 17 versions of the site plan. And so those might be a little bit easier to look at. I apologize in that the overview plan is the second page. And so if you start there on the larger 11 by 17s, you'll have a good sense of the overall site. As you know, these conditional use permit hearings are a little bit different than the hearings that you typically do in that, you are focused only on whether the proposal meets the required conditions under your ordinance. Your legislative decision as to the appropriateness of the use in the district has already been made. And I know that y'all are quite knowledgeable about solar farms and have heard quite a lot about them. So we will endeavor to be brief with you today so you can go outside and enjoy the beautiful sunshine. But let me call first Mr. George Richley, who is the project engineer, to talk with you about the site in general.
Thank you, Beth. Good morning. My name is George Richley. I'm a civil engineer with Ballantyne Associates. I'm the president of the company. I'm a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina, Virginia. I've been involved with well over 100 solar farms, generally similar to this particular farm. This farm is similar to other farms I've been involved with in that it is located in an agricultural area. The farm will be constructed very similar to many of the farms you've seen already, which is with a fence surrounding the perimeter of the array. There's very little impact to the land as the farm is being constructed. The posts are generally driven into the existing ground to build the farm, and there's very little, if any, mass grading done. In other words, there's not a lot of dirt moved around. The existing drainage patterns are maintained. And as was noted earlier, the farm is generally considered not to be impervious because the panels are situated above the ground, and the water hits the panels and sheet flows down onto the grass beneath, and therefore the state, a long while ago, has determined that the actual array area of the farms are not considered impervious. What would be considered impervious, as mentioned earlier, would be any impervious gravel drives that we would place, which we're calling for very few of those on this farm. Normally, we would just use a steel drum roller to compact the existing soil drives, and those would be used during construction to build the farm. And then once the farm is complete, another thing that was mentioned earlier, there's hardly any traffic that would visit the farm, and that would include periodic visits by maintenance folks that would be driving pickup trucks or whatnot. So large, heavy gravel drives are not necessary. A typical farm, and again, through many years of experience and over 100 farms, a typical farm of this nature would be somewhere under 2% impervious in that neighborhood. So the state considers these a low-impact use, and that's why stormwater, we don't typically trigger the need to do major stormwater ponds or anything like that because it is low impact. The planning staff did a great job of summarizing the overall site plan, and if there's any questions about that plan, I'm here to answer those. It is a 600-plus acre overall property, and the farm would look to disturb somewhere on the order of 328 of those acres to build the roughly 285 acre array. Again, you have received a detailed affidavit of my testimony that includes all my points and why I came to these conclusions, but my testimony in summary is that this farm, if it is built according to the plan, will not materially endanger public health or safety. It will not. It will be in harmony with the area in which it is constructed, and it is in conformance with all the county's requirements. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one right on.
Sure thing.
Is this an asset or a liability to this county and this people?
I'm really not generally qualified to answer that, but in my professional opinion, it is an asset. It is a use that is very benign. It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't create any odor. It doesn't use any county services. There's no water and sewer. It doesn't send kids to your county schools. So in my opinion, it's an asset to your community.
Yeah, and Commissioner Morgan, I would agree. I was going to, in my summary, address that issue that you had raised, but we would say to you that this creates tax base, which, the taxes are paid by the owners of the solar farm, and it doesn't use any of your resources. So, as George said, no kids are going to schools from the solar farm. There's no need for buses, no need for improved roadways because there's very little traffic associated with the solar farm. It also maintains large tracts of land with a use that can easily be removed such that the site could, at the end of the solar farm, be returned to cultivation or utilized for another use that might be appropriate at that time. In addition, we think the solar farm itself is a benefit to the community in moving our country away from its dependence on fossil fuels or other energy sources that require significant environmental impact, like we're hearing about on a regular basis with regard to coal ash. This is clean, renewable energy that we think is a benefit to your community.
I have a question. I noticed in the report that there's been over 100 solar farms greater than 3 megawatts that have all been put in service since 2011. And I know we've had quite a few. Just procedurally, every report we get, the comparisons are either Wayne or Johnston County. At what point will we be able to get comparisons of the effect on existing solar farms in Nash County?
So, Mr. County Manager, I believe that you are referring to a report prepared by our appraiser, and so
Okay.
how about we defer that question until he
Okay.
comes forward?
I'll do that.
Any questions for Mr. Ridgely?
Are we giving this solar farm to the Duke Power Company, or who are we giving it to, or selling it to?
Well, so the solar farm will be owned by a private entity that will contract with Duke Energy to sell the power
Sell the power back to the people of Nash County.
to Duke Energy, and then Duke Energy will distribute it. In North Carolina, in order to sell power to individual users, you have to be a regulated utility approved by the North Carolina Utilities Commission. And Duke Energy is one such utility.
Okay.
Okay?
Carl.
And so I'll call Mr. Hester.
Thank you.
Mr. Hester is he'll tell you about his background, but he is a MAI certified real estate appraiser.
Thank you for listening to us this morning. My name's Tom Hester. I'm a state certified general appraiser. That's the highest level of licensing for appraisers in North Carolina. I am a member of the Appraisal Institute, which is a national professional organization. I hold the MAI designation with the Appraisal Institute. I've been a real estate appraiser in North Carolina for 34 years. The question to me this morning is whether this proposed use has an effect on the adjacent properties and whether it affects the harmony of the surrounding community. You do have a report there that I've prepared. The report is based on my personal inspection of about 30 or 35 existing solar farms and also investigating transactions, real estate property transactions, and price patterns for other existing farms using county GIS services. You ask a good question about when will we be able to begin to see Nash County? And each time I revisit a county, I try to look at the existing farms in that community and determine if there are any new transactions surrounding those farms. So because the farms are new and because we are still generally emerging from recession, transactions are picking up, but they're just not as many. But I do try to revisit that each time I go back to a community. So I did not find any new transactions in Nash, but I think in the next year or two, as the market continues to pick up, I think we'll begin to see that kind of transaction.
Thank you.
Because I'm not looking at specific transactions, I mean, best case, I could look right down the road, or I could look in Nash County, but because I can't really find or have not found yet in Nash County those transactions, that's why I look in other counties and as many as I can, because just one situation is not always enough evidence, and so I try to look at as many as I possibly can. So I have used that paired sale analysis, and I have looking at properties close to solar farms and not close to solar farms. I find no difference in sales prices for similar properties. My conclusion is that this proposed use will not affect any of the adjacent properties, will not have a negative effect on value, and also find that it will be in harmony with the surrounding community. And just to address maybe another question, to me, this proposed use on this land, in terms of the value of this particular property, I've not really done an appraisal of this property per se, but I think this application to build the solar farm is a reflection of the property owner's business decision that the proposed use, the solar farm, is a more valuable use than the previous use of the property. I have not gotten into the economics of that with the property owner, and I don't mean to be putting words in his mouth, but when I look at it and somebody is selling their property or leasing their property, they are making a business decision that that is a better value to them personally than the old use. And then secondly, in terms of the value of the surrounding properties, which there's not really adjacent residential property here, but you've got agricultural property, you got timberland nearby. And this proposed use, I don't see any way that it affects the utility of the remaining timberland on this tract or the other adjacent timberland. The land is still just as good for growing timber. And the same with the cropland. I don't see that taking this parcel of cropland, which has been used for a specific crop, sod farming, I don't see that taking that out of production for sod is going to have any effect at all on the utility of the other surrounding farmland. So in my opinion, therefore, it doesn't affect the value of that adjacent or nearby property or any other property in the community.
This is a personal opinion of it, not of all the people. Are you harming your neighbors and the people around it, or more than you're giving them back?
In my opinion, you're not harming them at all.
Of course, if I'm buying or selling, that makes a difference of how I look at it.
I don't see that it has any effect on the sale price of the adjacent properties or any of the nearby properties. And the evidence looking at sales transactions indicates the same, that it doesn't have an effect.
And this takes it out of cultivation for the next, how long they want to take, y'all want to take it out, is that right?
That's correct. Okay. And along those same lines, just to sort of look at that a little different way, as it takes it out of cultivation, it really takes it also out of land inventory. And I think that's one of the things you're getting at. But in terms of an inventory of available land for timber or for crops or for anything else that somebody might use it for, now this property is now going to be allocated for solar energy production. That, to a certain degree, makes other property nearby a little more scarce because now the inventory is lower. So there's less cropland, that's what you're getting at. There's less timberland. That doesn't tend to make the other property less valuable in my view. That makes the other property a little more scarce and therefore helps support the value of the other property because now this cropland not available for traditional crops.
Are you saying this property is not good for for farming or whatever? Is that right?
I'm not saying it's not good for farming now. No, I'm not saying that.
But you think, because you're selling, you're buying rather than selling, right? You're buying this property from him and take it out.
That's right.
Is that not correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, and Mr. Hester, just to clarify, you have been hired as an expert witness to discuss the issue of impact of the proposed use on the value of adjacent property and harmony with the area.
That's right.
So you're not an investor and you're not participating in the purchase of this property?
No, I'm not.
Just to be clear.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
And Mr. Chairman, our last witness, Mr. Jerry Dudzik from Carolina Solar.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, county management. My name is Jerry Dudzik. I'm a partner with Carolina Solar Energy. I'm the applicant. Carolina Solar Energy is a renewable energy company specializing in utility-scale solar development. My company, Carolina Solar Energy, developed the first utility-scale solar farm in North Carolina, and by default, Southeast. We partnered in 2007 with North Carolina State University, and we built the first grid-tied system. At that time, we tied into Progress Energy. That project is still sitting out at North Carolina State University campus adjacent to the football field. Second project we built following that was with the North Carolina Zoo. We constructed a shade structure just to the east of their North American exhibit entrance, and we provided 10,000 feet of shade and another solar farm tied into Progress Energy. I've been in the business for 12 years. We've been very involved in the community, and I've developed over 70 solar farms of this size or greater. What we're proposing, as you see in your packet, is a 50 megawatt system. I won't go into a lot of detail because I know that you're all very familiar with solar farms from this development in this county, but it is a fixed tilt ground mount system. The electricity will be sold to Duke Energy Progress under 15-year renewable contracts. We'll generate enough electricity on average to power roughly 7,500 to 8,500 average North Carolina homes. Per your standards and per the UDO, we'll have an 8-foot security fence. As has been mentioned by the other witnesses, there's virtually no traffic after construction, barring a once-a-month visit by a technician in a pickup truck. All of the electrical components are UL approved, and just a brief summary of what we've done so far in terms of our due diligence prior to making this application. We've gone forward with the FERC 556 Qualified Facility Certification. That's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has approved the design, and that's been approved. The North Carolina Utility Commission has approved the R866 registration, which is required, and we have been issued a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. Our environmental engineering firm, ECS Carolinas, has conducted an ESA Phase 1 study, a wetland study, and a NEPA study, excuse me. And that's been approved and signed off on by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and a jurisdictional determination has been issued. We do have an interconnection agreement with Duke Energy, and just as housekeeping items, if you will, the Diener Erosion Control Plan will be applied for, and once approved, it'll be provided to Nash County Planning Department prior to pulling any construction permits, as will the NCDOT permit. Diener will require grass to be planted in compliance with the erosion control plan, and that'll be maintained by a local landscaping company. The site is designed to have a 30-year life cycle. Speaking to some of the questions that were asked earlier, following the 30-year life cycle completion, the decommissioning plan will be instituted and the solar farm will be removed. The panels are made to be removed from the racking. The racking has no cement footings. It's driven into the ground, similar to the way the Department of Transportation drives the columns into the ground for guardrails. Those are pulled up, and any underground conduit for the wiring is removed and the earth backfilled. The security fence is taken down and the land is returned to agricultural use. And that is the plan for the system. Over the course of the construction, which will take approximately 5 months, there'll be about 400 to 450 local folks that have the opportunity to be hired. There'll be 2 job fairs on consecutive weekends for the construction work, and training would be provided after the people are brought on board. In summary, based on my experience as a developer of solar farms in North Carolina and my familiarity with this proposed site, because I've been involved with it since its very inception, it's my professional opinion that the Brantley Solar Farm is located, designed, and proposed to be operated and to be maintained to promote the public health and safety. And as such, the proposed solar farm will not have material endangerment to the public health. And if it is built as submitted and approved by George Reichley, our civil engineer, by this board, it will meet compliance with the UDO. In addition, based upon my experience and Mr. Hester's testimony, it is my professional opinion that the proposed solar farm facility will be in harmony with the surrounding area, which is located in general conformity with the plan of the Nash County UDO. And finally, in summary, I'd like to say that solar farms generate clean, inexpensive energy and are an unlimited resource. Conventional fossil fuel sources of electricity are expensive, finite resources and require significant environmental disruption and public safety risk to maintain their operation. And as such, it is my professional opinion that the development of this proposed solar farm is, in fact, a public necessity. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have about the design or the intent of the application for the conditional use permit. And thank you very much.
Any questions?
You asked one question. I'm going to ask you one question. Do you think this is an asset to Nash County people?
Yes, sir. And in my opinion, it is.
Other than what the existing people that have been cultivating and all of that, not look into it from that standpoint rather than just, well, it's an electrical company, because utilities have gotten us by the so-called ears anyway, because they control what you do. Is that not true?
I'm sorry, the utility controls, what is the question?
It controls whatever you do with what the people around it does too. that controls them, because it's a part of their living, so you're taking away part of their living because they don't have the land to cultivate. Is that right?
So in this case, the property is cultivated by the landowner. It's a sod farm and it's treed. You know, the trees are grown for future harvesting. So I think it's done by the landowner, not by the neighbors. But the adjacent properties are also agricultural in nature, largely forested or farmed. And so, I don't think that this is creating a situation in which anyone would be disadvantaged by the proposed solar farm.
Is that a liability rather than an asset?
No, sir. Your county manager asked me that question probably a year ago after a hearing.
I probably did.
And I gave you my opinion then, and I'll give it to you now, that this is a wonderful benefit to the county. It is a land use that allows people to maintain large pieces of land, to generate an income from that property, to create clean energy, and then to remove that use in the future and have the land available for easy redevelopment. If it were subdivided and built as homes now, it would be very difficult to change that in the future. If it were, a big box store were constructed or a plant, it would be, very difficult to change that in the future. This is land banking for the county, allowing landowners to generate income now, but also preserving large tracts of land for future development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just very briefly in summary, I know we've taken up a lot of your time, and I truly do appreciate it. I want to point out to you, we have presented evidence that all of the 4 findings of fact have been met. I know your decision will be based on those 4 findings. You have previously found them to be true in a number of similarly situated cases. We would reserve time for rebuttal if there's any other comments. Otherwise, we would thank you very much for your time and ask for your support.
Okay, I was just reading here that all development regulations that you're required to meet. Yeah, right. Wasn't in the motor, it was sworn in. Okay, I call for a motion now to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Aye. Ayes, 1 opposed. Anyway, the motion carried, so we have closed the public hearing. Now, any other discussion?
I have one question regarding the law that changed January 1, but I'll wait until after the vote. If I could ask the attorney at that time.
Do that now.
Now? Okay.
Yeah.
I understand the tax credits, state tax credits expired on January 1, and you had to have been 80% complete in order to still get that tax credit. I was expecting a slowdown because of that. We've got about 20 in the county so far. How does that affect this transaction? Certainly, they're not 80% complete.
No, sir. This transaction will not be supported by North Carolina tax credits.
But they will be supported by federal tax credits?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There are federal tax credits that are available. And I think that, there remains significant interest in renewable energy at the state and national level. And so there remains a push to provide those services to the utilities. And so my expectation is that you will continue to see requests for solar farms.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there's no rezoning involved in this, I'll call for one motion.
One question first, Mr. Chairman, for one of the attorneys. The state tax credit, I understand, has gone away. Is there any effect on how we generally have treated them from a county tax standpoint? I know we forego X percentage, but there's X percentage left for us. Does that change it any?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, you know, I know, Mr. Morgan, you have a way of looking at these things, and I certainly respect the way you look at them. But when it gets down to it, it boils down to really two things in my mind, Commissioner number 7. First of all, you're dealing with a landowner that has made this choice of what to do with his land. And to me, that is almost the most important thing that we as elected officials have to be respectful of. The second item, which legally, when you look at what we are dealt here, you know, the way we have to look at it and the general statutes that we have to work under, we've got to look at this test, and if it passes that test, I don't see how we could object to it or vote against a solar farm. And it's very clear that they do, each one of them seem to pass the test, and to not approve it knowing it passed the test just puts us in an awful vulnerable situation of being sued. And I know this board doesn't like to get sued. We all in agreement on that. But it's just, our hands are tied almost how we deal with solar farms. I realize that some people may not particularly like the way they look, but in the end, we've got 4 items we got to look at, and they certainly seem to pass the test to me. So I don't know. I'm real concerned about 2 things, that part of it, as well as giving an individual property owner, which Mr. Morgan, knowing you as long as I have, I think that's important to you too, to allow a property owner to use his land like he wishes to. But with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'll let you call for your motions. Thank you.
Let me ask you one question, Mr.
Sure.
Davis, while you're going along.
Yes, sir.
But are we doing that, and how's it affected our neighbors? Are we supposed to be good neighbors for all our folks in here? Don't matter if it's a little bitty farm over here or 1,000-acre land.
Well, Mr. Morgan, I think the 4 items that we have to look at are there to answer your question. How does it affect your neighbors? And we've got 4 things. We could read them, but we've already read them. And it has been determined that these meet those 4 things, which means it doesn't adversely affect the neighbor beyond what is considered reasonable.
Yeah, all the neighbors were contacted when they had the planning board.
Well, in this individual case, of course, they were, but in general,
No,
the way
what
the
I'm
statute is
saying
written.
is that it came to us unanimous, and apparently only one person that didn't totally agree, and the others that had concerns were satisfied. So I think with the planning board and TRC and the Board of Commissioners here, we've done our job. So now I call for a motion to approve this, and I only need one motion because there's no rezoning involved. Ready for a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll make the motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Davis.
And adopt the consistency statement.
Second by Commissioner Wells. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed is the same sign.
Still no. Nash County people.
Okay, the motion passed 6-1 with Commissioner Morgan opposing.
Well, this county belongs to Nash County people, not
Yeah.
this 7 board member here. But anyway, go ahead.
Next, we have a public hearing, conditional use zoning from R40 to RCCU. Nancy?
This request is made by Kevin Bryant as well as the property owner Edward Bissett, and it seeks to rezone, let me get the piece of property. This is the piece of property in question. It seeks to rezone about half an acre, which is represented by this tract outlined in red. About half an acre of a larger tract at 6320 NC Highway 581 in Spring Hope, from R40 to RCCU, rural commercial conditional use. It's for motor vehicle sales. The applicant is Kevin Bryant, who is the current owner of Bryant Hardwood Floors, which is this operation that you see next door. This is just to give you an idea, that's the larger tract, which is, I think, 80-some acres, maybe. Let's bring that down. So the portion that we're talking about is located right here. This property here is generally zoned industrial. Here's the zoning on the site. This is the half-acre site that's the subject of the rezoning request today. This adjacent property, this property here is zoned industrial, and a portion of that industrial zoning also extends onto the farm tract in the other direction. So this is your subject tract here. Come back up to that closer. The area to be rezoned is approximately 130 feet deep and 170 feet of road frontage. The rural commercial zoning district is primarily intended to accommodate that limited retail, office service, and medium-density residential uses. It's typically located at the intersection of rural roads to provide moderate-intensity shopping and services. That's from the UDO. Motor vehicle sales is a permitted land use in this zoning district, and yeah, we'll put this one back up. And this, there is an address on the property, however, there's currently no structures. That address represents a previously existing manufactured home that's been removed, but the septic system is still in place, I believe. The submitted site plan for the project. Let's see. This would be the road. The road is on this side. And so the project shows an existing driveway at either end. So it's two existing driveways, 1, 2, 3, 4 vehicle display and parking areas for vehicles, 2 in the front and 2 in the rear sides, and an office building. It also shows an area of gravel. The rezoning doesn't trigger the incompatible land use screening requirements again, because the proposed boundary is not located within 100 feet of a separate adjacent residentially used or zoned lot on the same side of the state road right-of-way. However, the applicants in the site plan have designated this boundary. This is a 25-foot wide buffer along this boundary on the site plan, and that's for the purpose that if the area is ever subdivided rather than just leased off of the existing larger tract, then that would create a property boundary and could trigger that incompatible land use buffer. So in kind of planning ahead, the applicants have reserved this 25 feet in case they need to plant that at a later time to meet that buffer standard. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. In terms of consistency with the land development plan, the 2006 land development plan designates the subject tract as suburban growth, and that is typical for most of the county's jurisdiction in this area. And the LDP states that very limited non-residential or commercial land uses can be allowed in the suburban growth area, and it indicates a number of criteria. And 4 criteria, I believe, and those are access to a major state highway or secondary road, location at a major intersection, proximity to similar land uses, and spatial separation from non-compatible land uses such as existing residential development. While the subject site is not substantially separated from some surrounding residences, it does have frontage and access to the major highway. It is on a numbered highway. And it's located relatively close to this intersection, which in the land development plan is designated for rural commercial. This is the location of the site, and this is the node or the area that's shown in the land development plan as specifically as designated. And again, when the land development plan indicates nodes at intersection, it primarily serves as a guide that the county has designated that intersection as being significant enough to establish some commercial or non-residential activities rather than to designate a specific boundary. It sort of has to do with the size and the impact in that intersection. So it would not be unusual for a site at a particular intersection that shows a node to kind of elongate in one or another direction as development occurs in that area. And the final, the compatibility with neighboring land uses, of course, this one is located directly adjacent to this general industrial, and so the rural commercial allows a different sort of use, not quite as intensive as general industrial does allow. It's a small lot, and it is also on the same side as the commercial node that's designated as you get towards 97. Let's see. As I noted, the subject site is located about 140 feet south of this commercial node. Here. It's about 140 feet south of that. So that proximity to that intersection demonstrates its consistency with the land development plan. In terms of spot zoning, the subject site would not be considered spot zoning because it is located immediately adjacent to the more intensive GI district. Although the hardwood floor business that exists there now is not extremely intensive as some uses it could be in GI, that general industrial district is unrestricted in terms of the uses that can be on there. There's not a conditional use on that GI. So it is not considered to be a spot zone. The TRC considered this conditional use rezoning request on December 31st, 2015. Recommended approval with conditions. The planning board met on January 19th, 2016, and unanimously voted to recommend approval subject to the conditions. And the conditions from the planning board are listed in your motion for approval, in your suggested motion for approval. So those are the recommendations of the planning board that you find in that suggested motion.
All right, any questions?
Just a question,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Nixon, on the TRC and the planning board. Typically, in the information that we receive, if it's unanimous, it will state that. It doesn't state that for the TRC or the planning board, unless I've just overlooked it.
The planning board was unanimous, and the TRC was as well. I apologize for not indicating that.
Thank you. Would you please make sure that that gets added in?
Yes, I
Thank you.
certainly will.
Any other questions?
So the zoning is not going to change any of that. It's just like that's what the people want it, what the people that own it now want it. And is that not correct?
This half acre, the zoning would change on this half acre. It would change from that R40 to the RCCU, to the rural commercial.
What you can do with it remains the same, though.
No, the reason that the petitioners are requesting the rezoning is because the current zoning does not allow them to do the motor vehicle sales lot there on that piece of property. And so they are requesting this rezoning for that purpose. They also operate the hardwood floor business next door, but the rezoning is separate from that business.
Okay. Right. Move request.
Well, no, I have to go into a public hearing, Commissioner Morgan. I call for a motion to go into public hearing, and anyone that wishes to speak for or against needs to come up and be sworn in.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Barnes.
Yeah.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. You've heard that motion. All in favor of that motion to go into public hearing, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Ayes unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing on the conditional use rezoning from R40 to RCCU. Anyone wish to speak for or against, come up and be sworn in.
Here's the previous one right here. Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
These are the applicants.
I'm Ed Bissett, I'm the owner, and we're requesting the zone change.
Hi, my name is Kelly Bryant. How are you doing today? I'm representing Kevin Bryant, who is requesting the zoning change for the automotive used car lot.
Any questions?
Does this suit you? Does it suit the people around it, what they want, all right?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily suits the people.
Well, who
We'll
owns
just
it?
offer, I'm sorry?
The ones that own it, that's the people that own it around it. Are they okay with it? The owners, the former owners, they're okay, ain't they?
The former owners of the property?
Right.
That's
Now,
Mr. Ed Bissett. So
Okay.
yes, sir, he supports it and he's okay with it.
Move request.
Well, that's all that was sworn in. Call for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, seconded by Commissioner Barnes. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. All right, the public hearing is closed, and we're gonna have to vote twice on this one. First, I call for a motion to approve the consistent statement A.
Move for approval.
Moved by Commissioner Richardson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barnes. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed is the same sign. Now, a motion to approve the conditional use permit as presented.
I think Mr. Morgan did.
Okay, so move.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan,
Second.
second by Commissioner Outlaw. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. And opposed is the same sign. Ayes unanimous. Thank you. And now we'll move to another public hearing. Conditional use permit, a revision for a mini warehouse storage.
Thank you. This request, it may be a little familiar. We've had it, we've dealt with this property. This will be the third time, I think. And this case is a petition to revise an existing conditional use permit, number 100-1301, to add a fourth mini storage warehouse within the existing perimeter of the zoning. This is the site on 581. The request is by Keith and Philip Murray, I'm sorry, and they are the property owners, and several years ago, they came and requested this boundary of their property within their farm to be rezoned to rural commercial conditional use in order to erect 2 mini storage buildings and to kind of test that area out for that mini storage business. They came back 2 years later, and the business was successful enough that they were requesting a third building at that time. And now the request is to be able to put a fourth building on that location. And the reason it comes before you is because the site plan that's currently approved only shows 3 buildings. And so what they're requesting is to is to be able to add this fourth building to their complex. I do have a mistake in the second paragraph of the case summary. It says that the fourth mini storage unit would be inside the existing perimeter fence. I apologize for not deleting that. The next sentence does state that if it's approved, this amendment will expand the existing fence perimeter by approximately 9,500 square feet in order to accommodate this fourth building, plus some gravel drives. The existing fence actually is in this area right here.
Move request.
Just about in here. And so this would allow them to add that fourth building. It does expand the fenced area, but it doesn't change the rezoning boundary. The subject site doesn't contain any riparian stream buffers, not located in a floodplain or a protected watershed. I would note that with the size of the complex, with adding this building, that they are likely to add elsewhere on the farm a conservation easement in order to handle the stormwater requirements. But it won't be exactly here, but it will be on the larger farm. Okay, in consistency with the land development plan, let's see what we need to say about that. The Board of Commissioners approved the initial rezoning in accordance with the determination that Nash County should make an effort to support ongoing sustainability and diversification for farmers who can want to use their land for some other types of businesses. And as we mentioned previously, this request just adds one more building to the existing use. It's not changing the use, maybe increasing the size of it a little bit. So it is considered to be consistent with the land development plan. In terms of spot zoning, again, the zoning is already in place. It's just an additional building being requested to be shown on the site plan. Again, the Technical Review Committee considered the request on December 31st and did unanimously recommend approval. And the Planning Board considered it. This says the Planning Board, sorry about that, got my dates wrong, on January the 19th at their regular meeting, and adopted the following consistency statement. The request for the revised conditional use permit to add a fourth mini storage warehouse and gravel drive with additional fencing is reasonable and in the public interest. It is consistent with the 2006 Nash County Land Development Plan because it supports an existing business expansion in an RCCU zoning district. The commercial enterprise is associated with low traffic intensity and noise, and it is located on a major state road. Additionally, the request is not spot zoning because the zoning district boundary for the property is not changing. Again, the Planning Board unanimously recommended approval of the revised conditional use permit, subject to the conditions that are listed in your packet. That's all we have.
All right, any questions? Not, I call for a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Barnes. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Ayes unanimous, it's approved. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in another public hearing on a conditional use permit for mini warehouse storage at 3091 South North Carolina Highway 581. Anyone wish to speak, please come up and be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Keith Murray. My brother Phil Murray sits right back there. We are Murray Farms Incorporated, who operate Spring Hope Mini Storage as well. As you were told, this was an addition to our farming operation. Has done far better than we ever expected. We're sitting at 92% occupied right now, have actually been 100% occupied during the past year. We would like to expand by one building. I don't want to overshoot the demand for the area. So that's the reason we're back only requesting one building at a time. At some point, we will meet the demand for the area, and we don't want to take any more land out of cultivation than we need to because we farm as well. Therefore, we're back requesting one building, and we're open to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
Request.
All right, no questions, then I call for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Barnes. You've all heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, the same sign. Ayes unanimous. The public hearing is closed. And because there's no rezoning in this, I just call for one motion to approve the conditional use permit or deny the conditional use permit.
I think it shows two, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
My fault.
the change in the site plan constitutes a change in the zoning. It's not the zoning district, but it's in the conditions of that permit. So we would need a consistency
Okay, I was
statement
reading
for
off,
that. I apologize for.
No, that's my fault.
I was reading off of my agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of consistency statement A.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw and seconded by Commissioner Morgan that we adopt the consistency statement. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Ayes have it, unanimous. So the consistency statement has been approved. Now, I call for a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Bond. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Ayes unanimous. At this point, I'm going to call for a 10-minute break.
Amen.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and we'll start with item 10. Derek?
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Only item for you today is a consideration of waiving a utility fee for a water customer down in our Bailey area system. Mr. David Herndon has requested relief from the flat monthly water bill fee of $20 per month for his home located at 3666 Dalton Road near Bailey, as shown in the attached December 30th, 2015 letter, which I've put up here on the board for you, and it's in your agenda packet. Mr. Herndon, I don't think is here today. He works in Durham and didn't think he was going to make it, but he requested to be on the next commissioner's agenda. So had a good conversation with him and just presenting this item for him. Mr. Herndon signed up for a 3/4-inch water tap at a cost of $150 on May 27th, 2005 during our customer recruitment phase of our Bailey Arsenic Area project. He was first billed on March 1st, 2007 upon system completion and has paid a cumulative amount of $2,040, but currently owes $60. Mr. Herndon signed up during our Bailey area Arsenic Area project and states that he did so because rates for a tap would be much higher later, and that at the time he signed up, he did not have any issues related to his well. He has been consistently paying his utility bill, but has no immediate desire to connect to the water system and wishes to stop being billed. During times when Nash County has expanded our water system, we have conducted extensive customer recruitment campaigns comprising of multiple letters mailed to property owners, public information meetings, articles in local papers, door-to-door canvassing, and talking to persons by phone and many citizens in public. Public utility staff tries to explain our policies and procedures and the details of the project to all citizens in order for them to make the best educated decision about their property. The $150 discounted pre-construction rate was established to offer our citizens an opportunity to pay a much lower amount than our regular $1,300 tap in order to encourage customer signups by offering a tap fee that most all property owners could afford. while at the same time allowing the county to obtain a committed customer base necessary to move forward with expanding our system. Funding and loan agencies also want to make sure that our water system will be able to pay back the loans that we take out to finance our system expansions. This particular project was funded using public water supply SRF project loan money. It's low interest, 20 years, to which we are still paying. The $20 a month flat rate per customer tap was designed to pay the debt service on our many loans while at the same time offering one rate for all county water customers. So we've looked at our whole system as a combined system and tried to account that appropriately. To date, we are billing that flat rate to approximately 793 customers across our water system, bringing in a total revenue of about $190,000 per year. Again, that goes to paying debt service. Our approximately additional 2,100 water customers, using customers, pay the same monthly rate plus a cost per 1,000 gallons used, which that cost goes to pay for the O&M, operation maintenance, and water purchase costs. At this point in time, with knowing that our water system is still operating in a financial deficit, to which we will continue to do so for a few years to come, that water availability paying customers are needed to service our debt service, and that this water system expansion project to serve Mr. Herndon's area was specifically done because of the significant public health risk of groundwater, arsenic, and other issues. And finally, that citizens with water taps are and will continue to gradually connect to our water system. My recommendation at this time would be a motion to maintain our existing policy for billing the flat rate to citizens who signed up and were installed water taps and deny Mr. Herndon's request. However, I will add that in agreement with Mr. Herndon, I think at such time as our water system becomes financially self-supportive, that we would possibly consider and evaluate a new policy to stop billing availability customers who are paying that predetermined, that $20 a month until such time as a predetermined amount of fees have been paid, or where property owners who can't utilize their tap, we'd look at stopping those payments. But that I would say would be at some point in the future. At this point, to answer any questions that you might have, and yeah, we'll go there from there.
Any questions?
Just one, Mr. Chairman. Derek, did this individual give us any type of easement or any kind in putting this water line in?
Nope.
So it's not a case like that?
No, and my concern with him is he's in an area where we tested for pretty high levels of arsenic in the groundwater. So we exceeded the MCL, the maximum contaminant level. And now his well, I don't think was one of those. I don't know if it was tested. I think it was tested before he bought the tap and wasn't, we don't have current data on that. So I encourage him to also get his well tested to see what he was drinking.
Gotcha. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Did he understand when he signed that he would have to pay that until they tap on?
He didn't recall that, but again, we're looking at, he signed up in 2007, 2005. So, we're going back quite a ways here. It's 10 years ago. I know in our publications, when we mail out customer recruitment letters, we discuss, that there's a commitment to sign up for our system, that, if you don't connect right away, you're going to have the availability fee assessed. But again, that's a long time for him. I think where he's at now is he called in recently to see what it would take to get that fee eliminated. And when he asked how much he had paid, I told him, you've paid almost $2,000 or just over $2,000. And we got into a conversation. He realized that, basically he would have been better off if he didn't want to connect. He got the cheaper rate at the time, but he would have paid now the $1,300 or exceeded $1,300 if he had just waited to get a tap whenever he was ready to connect. So I think for him, it's just a financial decision of, hey, I'd like to get out of this. But yes, I think we did a good job letting the public know what our policies were at the time, but not everybody attended our public information meetings, and not everybody, may be totally aware of our procedures.
Did I understand you to say that he would like to be on the agenda next
He
month?
asked that this item be put on the agenda to get before the board. And, after we've had a couple good conversations, I think.
I met with,
Yeah, and he's talked to the county manager. I think what he would just like is that at some point, if you're paying the $20 a month, at some point that should end. And I wouldn't say I disagree with him on that. I just think with where our system is, we're just not in a good position yet to do that. I can say Edgecombe County, I believe, and some other counties, you hit a threshold, and that's when they kind of stop doing that, but their systems are very different than ours, and that, they were getting 75% grant money to put in their systems. We're 25%, so we have a lot higher loans than some of the other systems east of us would have, so.
Can the user afford it, these increases?
I mean, our bills have been $20 a month for some time, I think back to 2007. So ours has stayed the same. Now, it really is a question for them is when you sign up, and we have a total voluntary connection policy for existing homes. So if you decide that you want a tap, that's totally your choice. But once you get that tap, once you're committed to our system, our documents state that $20 a month is the availability fee for having that tap in place. And over time, more and more folks, connect to the system. There's a reason they connect, and that number keeps dropping, but.
Question, Mr. Derek, I see in your report here that those customers that have not hooked up are generating $190,000 a year for the system. Plus, we have 2,100 other customers. Mm-hmm. What's the projection this year as to the bottom line for that system? I mean, are we expected to break even at the end of the year? Or how much are we having to take from fund balance to balance that?
I'm going back with not having looked at that since last budget year, but I think we were in a deficit of about $250,000 is what the report I show the board kind of once a year during a work session. I think that's where we were going to end up, I thought, being at the end of this year. However, the budget's a little bit greater deficit than that.
Thank you.
All right, and your recommendation here, based on your comments, is that
I would recommend
we should deny it at this point, because I know there have been some others that came and requested get out of it, and we denied it.
Correct. That would be my simple recommendation or motion. And again, as we get more towards a profitable system, we can have this discussion in a work session whether we want to consider that at a future date.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, I know what this person is asking for. I've had those comments from a couple of people, but I think we need to go slow and be careful in how we do this, because when we do it, we're going to have more than one asking for it to be done. And I hope we can work out something that it will be workable for everybody. But for right now, I don't think it's a good idea, but go in it slowly so it will benefit all, and hopefully we can get it working so we can work in the black, not in the red. So, but I think we need to be careful, because when you open it up for one, because like I said, I've already had 2 or 3 back, but I didn't comment on it because if they signed that letter, they were supposed to read it, not saying they understood it all, but
correct. To
do it for one, and you're gonna open it up for all the others. So I hope we can, but let's be slow and careful in how we say it and do it for all our citizens.
Yep, I totally agree. And I will say there are some cases, this gentleman doesn't have a specific reason other than he just doesn't want the bill. The tap's there, he's got a house. I'll throw some examples out there of, some areas where there were 2 lots and they paid for a tap for both lots, and they can't develop on one of the lots they can't get a septic permit or something like that. That would be something I'd feel a little bit more comfortable coming to the board and asking to waive sooner than something like this. But yeah, we're opening a big can of worms if we start waiving this for these type of requests.
If I may, it seems like many years ago there was a requirement that private wells get tested by the health department. Is that still a rule?
I know Nancy might can join in after I talk, but the new construction for a well, you're supposed to get tested. But I don't think there's any requirement that at any
yearly
time you get
yearly inspection.
Not unless the homeowner requested from the health department to test it.
Now, I encourage folks, I mean, for the health department, you know, environmental health will do it for like $80. There's a test, they go into the planning department, there's a form to fill out, there's like 20 different parameters they test for, it goes off to the state. During a lot of our Phase Central Nash project, we were trying to document what the groundwater issues were, so we encourage a lot of folks to do that, and in some areas, actually, the county environmental health has sampled wells for free for us, just so we can populate what the concerns are, but that has been on a voluntary basis, and no, there's no requirement to my knowledge.
Yeah, we all know that Flint, Michigan's in the news these days because of bad water and people getting that bad water. It's just concerning that there may be people in the county that have access to water, public water, that does not have lead and is healthy, and they may still be getting tainted arsenic water. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but.
Well, the other problem, you know, at least with our system, we know we're testing for all sorts of things all the time. Your well system, you know, you might have had a well for 30 years or even longer and have never tested it, because that's only a new requirement, I think, since the 90s. So people before the 90s, they didn't test at all.
As far as I know, it's all voluntary once the well is established, unless you're going to dig another one or something like that, or you have a problem with it that's going to cause you to do that. But we do have regularly through the office individual homeowners that wanted to test their wells, but it's not due to a requirement.
Okay, and we're getting that water from the city of Rocky Mount, not from wells in that area, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, like Commissioner Richardson said, I too think we really don't have a choice in this thing. Hardly 793 customers that are paying this fee, and of course been involved in the water system since we first started. I know we make it very clear, and we've even made some additional changes in our literature to make it even more clear. But I also, Derek, think we need to be cautious about talking about what we may can do in the future, because I really don't see that time any time near if we're going to continue to build a countywide water system. I don't see it changing in the foreseeable future, so I just be cautious the way I use that language as well. Because it is certainly needed, and it's a good deal when you get that tap at what we're giving it for up front. It's just a business decision that each individual gets to make. And you know, I think Mr. Bissett's left, but he was here a few years ago and requested 2 or 3 different ones that he had, and we had to deny that request. So we really need to stick with what our policy is, just because we're going to be operating not profitable for a very long time, I'm afraid, due to the 25% grants that we may be able to obtain, or it may be none.
You know, and to add to the ultimate solution is for the people to connect to water, and then that's what the taps are there for. That's why we ran the systems.
And that's the important point. The $20 is a month is to help encourage the person to go ahead and get on the system, because that's what we really need.
Okay. All right, listening to the comments, I'll call for a motion to approve or deny.
Deny, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to deny the request. Second by Commissioner Richardson. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Ayes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is budget amendments.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have the following budget amendments for the board's consideration. The first one is for the sheriff's office. This budget amendment is to appropriate the grant funds for the Gang and Drug Task Force grant. This grant was actually approved in November this year. It was for salary and uniforms, and we are requesting fund balance to cover the benefits associated with this position. The next one is with the Water and Sewer Department. This is to budget for operating and maintenance for the town of Dorch's water and sewer system. This is based on the joint interlocal agreement that was approved last month. No county funds are requested. The last budget amendment I have is for the health department. This amendment is to budget additional state funds to provide for training opportunities for the staff and community partners. No county funds are requested. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Chairman, I move for approval of the amendments.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw and seconded by Commissioner Wells. You've heard that motion to approve these budget amendments. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. Ayes unanimous. Thank you. Board appointments.
Good morning.
Morning.
We've just got a few board appointments this morning. The first one is related to the Gateway Partnership Board of Directors. As you'll recall, we have one vacancy that needs to be filled. It's a 3-year term expiring 12/31/18. Commissioner Davis is recommending John High Jr., and the application is in your packet to fill this position. He was nominated or recommended from the Home Builders Association, which also made the recommendation for the person who was in this slot prior to him, which was Tim Freeman. So that would be the first one.
What, may I ask one question? What dollars and cents are we requesting for that position?
None.
Nothing.
This is just an appointment to the board.
These are board appointments. All right, any questions about that? If not, I call for a motion to approve.
I make a motion, we accept.
Moved by Commissioner Wells, second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign? Ayes unanimous. So John Hyde Jr.
So that completes that list or that group of vacancies on the Gateway Partnership Board. And then we have 2 other vacancies, one with the TDA that is a carryover from last month, and also one with the Human Services Board, which is the psychiatrist member.
On the TDA, I want to discuss with the board just a moment, if I may. You know, we've had trouble filling that slot because it has to be a collector, and I've about been through every owner and every employee trying to find somebody without success. I've got several that could do it that are not residents in the county, but they work in the county. Just my little bit of review of our statute seems to say that they do not have to live in the county, but I'd like to have Vince to verify that, and if the board's not opposed to it, to consider next month maybe one that that doesn't reside in the county, so we can get that slot filled. There are just a lot of people that work in these hotels or own them that live in adjoining counties that could certainly attend the meetings, et cetera. But that's just where I'm at with it right this minute.
Yeah, I've talked with a lady that works at Doubletree, and she said she had to check with her boss whether it was okay for her to serve. And she's supposed to let me know today if he approves of her serving.
Of course, the other thing I'm trying to do is not have multiple members from the same unit, because that causes a little bit of rub on the board itself.
Yeah.
And I do currently have a member from Doubletree on there, but we can certainly consider that.
Okay.
But
I'll discuss that with.
If Mr. Durham could let me know that for certain.
Check.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. We'll just carry those 2 to next month.
Okay. Monthly tax report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and others. Of course, the first item is the tax report, which is for information purposes only as usual, but I'm always glad to answer any questions that you might have about it. just in general that, you know, you can, that's as of the end of December, and we were able to move back ahead of the previous year.
Any questions? No questions. We'll move on to tax refund.
Yes, sir. And there as well, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Davis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Outlaw, that we approve the tax refund. You've heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, the same sign. Ayes unanimous. Next, report on unpaid taxes.
Yes, sir. Every time this year, of course, required by statute, it's my duty to report to you and the taxpayers the amount of unpaid taxes that are liens on real estate in the current year. What you're looking at, that figure for this year, as of January 31st, is $2,291,317.25. And I know you like to know how that compares with the previous year. The previous year was at $2,451,014.82. So in that regards, you know, we are continuing to improve. So we're pleased with that position at this time. But I do need to ask you to consider approving the report and then, of course, ordering me to advertise the current year or 2015 taxes between now and June the 30th. Or from March 1st to June the 30th.
Okay.
This is last year's tax, right?
Well, the current year unpaid taxes
Yeah.
that are delinquent as of January the 6th.
A motion, I call for a motion to approve the unpaid tax report.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Richardson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wells. You've heard that motion. All in favor of the motion on unpaid, the report on unpaid taxes for 2015, say aye. Aye. And oppose the same sign. Ayes unanimous.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Your name on the list, Mr. Moore.
Probably should be, but it ain't on there.
Okay, commissioners, anything you have to report?
Mr. Chairman, a couple weeks ago, there was a special call meeting for East Point Board of Directors, which I attended the meeting in Mount Olive, where Ken Jones announced his retirement, and that will be effective April 1. At which time they said that at our next meeting, which was this past Tuesday, they would inform us of the succession plan. I was not at that meeting because I was traveling, but they announced Sarah Stroud, who is the CFO, would be the CEO, and also made some changes in policies and bylaws which directly affect county boards of commissioners. And I will read the change if you don't mind.
Okay.
So it states, appoint an area director / chief executive officer in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 122C-121D. And that says the appointment is subject to the approval of the Board of County Commissioners, except that one or more boards of county commissioners may waive its authority to approve the appointment. The appointment shall be based on a selection by a search committee of the board. The search committee shall include consumers, board members, a county manager, and one or more county commissioners. The secretary shall have the option to appoint one member to the search committee.
One or more?
So I'm not aware of any search committee at all, and that whole item, number 7, was struck from the bylaws.
Took out the bylaws.
So I wanted to update you on that because that affects this board.
Any comments in regard to that? Any questions, rather?
If you could, I'd like Mr. Barnes to read it again, if you don't mind.
Okay. The appointment is subject to the approval of the Board of County Commissioners, except that one or more boards of county commissioners may waive its authority to approve the appointment. The appointment shall be based on a selection by a search committee of the board. The search committee shall include consumers, board members, a county manager, and one or more county commissioners. The secretary shall have the option to appoint one member to the search committee.
And that language is in East Point's bylaws, not in the statute, correct?
It says in accordance with the statute.
That's what I thought you said. You didn't say that the second time.
Oh,
That's what I
sorry,
looked
yeah. It says appoint an area director / chief executive officer in accordance with that general statute 122 C-121D.
Z.
D as in dog.
Okay.
And
It is a dog.
are you saying that meeting, that they appointed this person, they waived that part of it?
Yes, that was on the agenda.
You don't have to be that many.
And they
Was
have
that-
all,
Did they waive it or amend it? Do you know?
I mean, it was struck as line.
was struck.
It's struck out.
Or did the meeting
taken out of the
announcement state that change in your bylaws would be done at this meeting?
It was in the agenda
In
packet.
the agenda package? Okay. Was it public noticed, or do you know?
I do not know about that.
Okay.
but they've already named,
They've already named.
named it based on what I read in news.
And according to the School of Government, the county has a role in the approval of the appointment
Approval
That
of
is-
of the CEO, and also is supposed to comment on the performance of the LME director. So there's supposed to be a direct partnership there involving the county boards of commissioners.
Now, what did they interpret there? It sounded like just the county representative, you as the representative of Nash County Board of Commissioners. No, they went on and made a decision, so I guess that's what they were.
I mean,
They assuming, because it certainly didn't come to the board.
it did not come to the board. I mean, this would be something I would think would come to each board that's in the LME, each county commissioner board, as far as approving the director.
Using taxpayer money right on, so I don't know why we wouldn't have a voice in it. Because we're spending your money.
Well,
our money,
it's
our
supposed to be a partnership.
Right.
But based on what she's read to us, I think there's 3 issues. One, what does the statute specifically say?
Right.
2, can they waive the search committee process, and whether the statute talks about that? And 3, can they waive the power of the counties to be involved in the approval of the CEO of the LME? So, it's...
So, I mean, all the other LMEs abide by these same bylaws, I think, or the statute. They would have to abide by the statute. So now they're in effect taking away that authority of these 12 counties, whereas all the other counties in the state would have that authority.
It sounds like that they're going to be in conflict even with the state as well as the counties. It leads me to wonder how long they're going to last.
And right now, they're putting in some of that they want.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I think, of course, I'm not involved in this every day like Mr. Barnes, but I know it's common knowledge that Nash County wants out of East Point. But it looks like what we need to do is just have our own attorney to, I'm sure they've got, in fact, I know they've got several attorneys that represent that board, and you would think it would have gotten reviewed prior to doing some of what you just spelled out. But the best we can do today is have our attorney to look into it and report back to us if he felt like there was anything done that wasn't within general statute or anything else that the manager brought up.
Certainly.
Don't take away none of the authority that Nash County people have. I mean, the board, this board.
Well, we fully understand that. I just feel like we may have been impressed enough already without knowing how we feel about wanting to move to a better situation. That it would be best just to see exactly legally where we stand prior to taking any more action. Is that all right, Ms. Barnes?
Yes. Thank you.
I agree.
I'll review it and get back with you.
Okay.
All right, we'll leave it, we'll leave it at that. And, any more reports from, individual commissioners before I call on the county manager? All right.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Just let the board know that tomorrow morning, we're going to have our department head meeting, and we're going to have our budget kickoff. On March the 7th, we're going to ask the commissioners to set a date, which is your next meeting, to set a date for the budget workshops. Friday is Carolina Panther Day here in the county. Employees may wear Carolina Panther garb or any other, Redskins, Cowboys, whatever. We can't control content. So we've opened it up, but we're encouraging Carolina Panthers. And and we'll have a picture taken at 2:30 of all our employees with their Carolina Panther garb. So
Great.
we've gotten a great reception about that. Elgin and Stacy have conducted 4 personnel policy workshops, first with department heads and supervisors, and then with the other employees. They've been well received, standing room only in this room. So they're making a big effort to fully inform all the employees of the new personnel policy that came in effect January 1. The reworking of the front parking lot at Ag Center is complete. That happened this weekend. There was a push to get it done before early voting that starts on March 3rd, and we were able to get that done this week, thanks, Derek. And we're also working on the lighting at that building. There's some bad lighting issues that we're trying to correct. So
severe lighting issues.
Yeah.
It's been that way for some time.
Yeah. Well, county staff is on that, and hopefully we'll have that resolved soon also. Last Tuesday or Wednesday, I had a great meeting with the new superintendent with the school system. We met for about an hour, and I look forward to working with him, and I think he looks forward to working with myself and the county commissioners. So it was a great initial meeting. We continue to work on mental health while we are waiting to hear from Secretary Brazier on our request for realignment with Cardinal. Staff is meeting later today with Karen Salaki from East Point to discuss current programs that are paid out of county dollars to begin the evaluation of the effectiveness of those programs. As y'all know, of the $354,000 that we had been appropriating, we feel like less than half of that was really staying locally. and that the allocation of the remaining dollars were done in a way to show that they were going to local programs, but that allocation of local dollars is not the way other LMEs use local funds. We've got local programs. Of our 8 local programs, we've got some that have not been evaluated in a long time. So we're going to start the process today, meeting with her, learning as much about the current programs as we can, and then the Mental Health Committee will meet with us, which is the chairman, Ms. Barnes, and Commissioner Barnes and Commissioner Richardson, to look at a process for future programs and soliciting ideas for new programs at the local level. Mental health is always evolving, and we've got issues more and more dealing with heroin use and suicide and other things that we think we should really be looking at and providing services for that vulnerable population. Remind everybody about the chamber luncheon tomorrow. They've moved it from night to noontime at Nash Community College. And I will see most of y'all there. Starts at noon. And later this week, Rosemary and I will be attending the managers conference at the Sheraton Imperial Wednesday through Friday. So that's where I will be. I'll be available by phone, text, or email. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Chairman.
Yes.
If I could politely remind the manager that in starting budget season this year, it'd be a lot easier to get ready for reval in a 2-year period than it will a 1-year period, year after next, sir.
So you suggesting increasing the tax rate?
No, sir.
I'm just playing.
Look at all expenses as much as we can, knowing we'll have a increased amount of income year after next.
Yeah, we're going to look at it in a 2-year cycle because of what we know is coming down the road.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I call for a motion to go into closed session, attorney-client privilege, personnel, and economic development.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add the item of property acquisition on that list if we could, because we got a discussion on something here.
Oh, okay. All right.
From a meeting last week.
Okay, ready for a motion with that included, property.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Davis. Second by Commissioner Richardson. You all have heard that motion. All in favor of it, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same sign. I don't think we'd have any action that we need to come back.
I'm not aware of.
Anyway. All right, well then, we'll close out in our closed session.